The principle in biblical child rearing is that parents are teachers. The fundamental thought of teaching is imparting a lesson into another person. Imparting a lesson is not the same thing as presenting a lesson. Imparting means the guy walks away with it. I have it, I give it to you, you walk out the door with it. That would be imparting a lesson. If the lesson is not imparted, then teaching did not occur. This is so fundamental to parent-child interaction in the home. And if you could ever consciously think of this in your interactions with children, I'm a teacher, my job is to impart a lesson, then you would see immediately what the issue is, and that is that many, many times your child is not teachable. And that's why the lesson's not imparted. Reading the child's teachability, in other words, it becomes like dancing at some point. I don't know how dancing works very well, which may say something about how skilled I am as a dancer, but I can tell you that one of the things that happens in dancing is if somebody is leading. But when you're watching a couple, maybe you're watching ice skates in competition or watching ballroom dancing or something like that, you can't really tell what's going on in the direction of what the couple's about to do, but they do it together. This subtle leadership back and forth between these two is something that they have agreed on and figured out. Children don't have this insight when they're born. They don't have the insight that they're a couple with you and that you're the guy who's directing the dance. They've never danced before, and they've never had a partner before. They are like you, however, in that they think they're in charge. I don't know if you knew that or not. But anyway, you find this out somewhere after 9 months of age usually, when you tell a kid, this is the way we're going. And he says, well, maybe you think you're going that way, but that ain't the way I'm going. And this is where you first run into it. And you say, I thought we were going together. He says, no, I'm going this way. If you want to be with me, that's the way I'm going. And now you've got this great crisis. Now most of us go right past this, don't realize it's a crisis. We don't deal with it in some kind of a final way to fix it. And we end up then in some kind of a dysfunctional sort of conversation and relationship that periodically flares up, in which the child says, I'm not going the way you're going. And we get over in this back and forth. This all starts, by the way, because we started by making a rule. I would say this, if you never made a rule, how much conflict would be eliminated from your life with your child? If you never made a rule, how much conflict would be eliminated? The conflict comes from the rule. I think I'm in charge. I tell you to do something. You don't think I'm in charge. We have a conflict. It's as simple as that. We just say things. Don't do that, eat that, stop, come here, pick it up. We say a million things. We don't know we're doing it. We say it over and over and over and over and over. Each one of these is a command. Each command invites a conflict. We have an assumption that we're in charge. But the child is born with the notion that he's in charge. This is part of our nature. All of us are this way. We have to deal with it. We have an imagination that says we live with a child in this house who does what I say. If I said it, he'd do it. Really. What's the evidence of that? We're supposed to do it, right? His brother did it, right? When I was a kid, I used to do it, right? But what about this child? What's the evidence that this child will do it? We ought to do it. Here we go again. The reality is something other than what we're thinking when we give a command to a child who has been proven not to be obedient to our command. The reality is he's not that way. And we don't see it. We see something else. If we were to get this down, we would be coaching him through life. We'd be saying, kid, here's how you throw a fastball. And he'd say, gotcha, coach. and he's out there throwing fastballs. Wouldn't that be nice? That's the way it works with coaching. And it turns out that families and child rearing stuff, parents are like coaches. They work alongside children, helping them to learn how to do the stuff that they have to do in a million different ways. They work alongside children. And if the child accepts the authority of the parent, they live happily ever after. And that's the way it's supposed to be. And we just go through life together having a good time. Is there such a thing as this? I don't know. But I can tell you that the way the Bible recommends you do this is through what's called discipline. Discipline is a process of practicing doing it right. You may want to think of that one. The word discipline is a process of practicing doing it right. It's not punishment. Punishment is something else. Punishment is something that judges do and courts do. Parents discipline. And there may be a place in discipline for some kind of harshness, but typically discipline does not involve harshness, it involves instruction and practice. Children get practices all the time in doing things. They may practice right, they may practice wrong. I want to read you a piece of this problem that was given to me. I can usually get him to obey about half the time when I raise my voice. I want you to think of what that means to just someone like me who is analyzing this stuff. I can get him to obey about half the time when I raise my voice. What does that mean to me? It means that I don't raise my voice to start with and I don't get it. That's number one. Number two is I'm giving him a practice in disobedience even when I raise my voice for every time I get an obedience. Even when I raise my voice, I'm getting a practice in obedience and a practice in disobedience. That would be 50%. Whatever you practice, you'll get better at it. If you practice doing something right, you'll get better at doing it right. Suppose you practice doing it wrong. Do you understand? When some of you all may have heard me talk last fall, and I apologize when I tell you stories that I've already told you. You'll have to put up with that. But I was a person as a child who really loved to play baseball, but I never had a coach. And I played a lot of sandlot ball all over the place. But when I was about 15 or so, there was an opportunity to try out for a high school team. And I went to the coach as a candidate for the high school team. And he wanted to watch me bat. And I took the bat and I swung in front of him several times. And he said, "Boy, can I tell you something? Do you know that when you swing the bat, just as the ball is about to go over the plate, you do this?" I said, "I do." He said, "Yeah, I'll watch you do it. You do this." He said, "I bet you if you kept your eyes open, you'd hit the ball more often." I said, "I bet you're right." And you know what? I couldn't learn to do it. I'd done it for too many years. I couldn't learn to keep my eyes open when I was swinging at the ball. I didn't go on the team, by the way, because I'd practiced for too long doing it incorrectly. What is the practice of a child at age 3 at the table who the mother knows doesn't like broccoli and serves broccoli to him? What is the practice he gets at the table? Eat your broccoli. I don't like broccoli. I don't care if you don't like broccoli, you got to eat your broccoli. Broccoli smells bad. It doesn't matter whether it smells bad or not. I said eat your broccoli. I hate broccoli. Eat your broccoli. And this goes on until it's over with. I don't know how it ends up. I'll tell you the practices at the table. Number one, he practices resisting your authority. Number two is he learns manners at the table. The table is a place to have an argument. Those are his practices. And it happens night after night. 3-year-old, 6-year-old, 10-year-old. And this is where it comes from. Discipline is practicing doing it right. Not just practicing. It's practicing doing it right. idea of practice involves learning to obey. Learning to obey is contrasted with practicing obedience. This is a horse who is not under authority. Can this horse be trusted to round up the cattle? No, I can't even sit on him. I've got to, first of all, bring him under my authority before I can do anything with him to teach him about how to round up the cattle. Do you see that? This is a different process from that. If this is the problem, this is where your focus needs to be. If you've got this down, then we go to that. But this has to come first. I'm in charge. You've got to get that straight. If you don't get that straight, this doesn't matter. In the home, we have a million things distracting us. And a classroom teacher, teaching like a mother has to teach at home, would look like this. And that's what the classroom would look like. There's so many things going on in the home. You got to get out of the house at 3:15 to pick the kid up from school. You got to get the other kid over to the ball practice by 4. You got to get your shopping done before 6. You got to get the roast in the oven. You got to who knows what you got to do. It goes on and on. And this isn't even about the kid. We're talking about the 3-year-old. He hasn't done anything. He's been at the daycare all day. You pick him up. Who knows what he's up to? And all you got for that kid is just something over your shoulder. Leave that alone. No, come. No, stop whining. No, don't hit your brother. It goes on and on. And so we end up making rules about all kinds of things. And we don't even know we're doing it. We don't even hear ourselves saying it. We don't even hear ourselves saying the rules. It's like there's a fly in this room. And the fly is buzzing by, and every now and then it lands on me, and I do this. And we're still talking, and there he is again. Maybe he's over on you next. He's around somewhere. And that's all we're doing with the fly. This is what the rules are like after a while in a child's life. This is what it feels like to be a child. And this is how the rules sound after a while. It's just a bunch of flies buzzing around. Who knows what's going on? The flies are just around, and we just take a swat at it. It doesn't really end anything. And this is what we start sounding like. We go blah, 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 blah. And this is awful. This is awful, because this is where the authority, we just hemorrhage authority when we do this. Authority comes out of, at some level, dignity. Your own dignity. And your reputation as an authority figure is something that you have to remember if you want to maintain authority with children. Do you remember in the 6th grade going into the 7th grade, and at the bus stop talking to a bunch of 7th graders who were going into the 8th grade? And they say, so who do you have for English? I have Ms. So-and-so. She's awful. You can't get away with anything in her class. She'll nail you every time you blink. Who do you have for social studies? Mr. So-and-so. Oh man, you get away with murder with that guy. He doesn't even show up half the time. What are we saying? The teachers have maintained, have presented their reputation to the class before. The class before has understood who they were and dealt with them that way, and now they have this reputation that goes on into the next generation. The reputation keeps on going this way. Your reputation as an authority figure today is based on what happened yesterday. If what you got yesterday was obedience, there's a pretty good chance you'll get obedience today. If what you got yesterday was disobedience, there's a pretty good chance that's what you'll get today. That's the way it works. How many of y'all know to slow down in Cottageville? Why? Why do you slow down in Cottageville? Well, everybody knows why you slow down in Cottageville. There's a reputation about the little rules in Cottageville. There are other places where it doesn't matter so much, but I'll tell you what, you ought to slow down in Cottageville. This is the reputation of the law enforcement in Cottageville. Because we're not paying attention, we assume we look like this. But this is what we look like most of the time. And it's hard to respond to this. It's hard to respond to the authority of this person. And we don't even see we look like this. We end up being imaginary parents and just become targets at some point. I've showed you what the basic issues are. Number one, you don't have authority, or you've lost authority. You have to reestablish authority. You reestablish authority by giving a command and practicing a command with a pen, nothing else, just a pen. What else do you need? If you don't do a pen, why would you need something else? Do something easy. Just work with something easy. I'm teaching you to obey me. Close the door. Pick up the ball. I don't care what it is. But don't give up until it happens. I say it, you do it. I say it again, you do it again. 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 Now you get the hang of it. I say it, you do it. That's establishing authority. If you don't have that, you don't need to go anywhere else. You need to establish authority. If you do have authority, then you practice doing it right. This is a more complex thing. That's what she was doing. She was practicing how to go to bed at night. She was under their authority, and she was practicing how to go to bed at night. Occasionally there's a breakdown. When there's a breakdown, you go through the apology. The breakdown represents a talk to the hand. I don't deal with you. If you don't deal with me, then we'll wait until you do, because I ain't going anywhere, and you owe me an apology. That's the way it is. The hand goes up. Number one is I don't talk to hands. Number two is you owe me an apology. I've got nothing else to say. Apology is a realignment. If you're under authority and you're not responding to it, it's like authority's here and you're here and you're here and you're here and you're here. You're out there. And authority says you must respond to me. This is the way we are with God. We're all over the board with God. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, thy will be done, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, we forgive those trespasses, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen. Whew. That's the model prayer. And that's how hard it is to stay under God's authority. And when we don't stay under God's authority, the answer is an apology. That's what this is, an apology. It's a realignment. If your child is against your authority and doesn't come back to realign with your authority, you are wasting your time. You've got to have him under your authority when you try to teach him. He must be under your authority when you try to teach him, or you're wasting your time. If you forget everything else I say, don't forget this.